hey, if you're using information to try to guide your decision-making process as a practitioner, like, hey, join the club. You're a sports scientist, because that's all it is at the end of the day. Is I always say it's using better information to make better decisions. And I think that's what we're all trying to do.
Okay, we're back. Jordan Troester, welcome to VALDCAST.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Pleasure to be here.
For sure. And we're in Red Bull, the Athlete Performance Center in LA for our first VALDCon X. So it's been a jam-packed weekend so far. How have you found it?
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. We call this the boardroom for obvious reasons. And yeah, excited to have a chance to sit down with you for a little bit. But no, it's been fantastic just to have everybody welcomed into what we call the world of Red Bull, right? It's a unique environment, a unique place. And I've had dozens of conversations over the last day or so with people who say, like, how does this exactly work? And so just explaining the way that we try to support Red Bull athletes and just being a part of a much larger global ecosystem. And the unique way that we operate. It's really, really cool to be able to share that with a large group of people, and super thankful for VALD and partnering with us to execute what's been an unbelievable event so far. So.
For sure. I think unique is the key word. It's probably the most diverse building I've been in a long time. And between the building, the resources, and the athletes, the unique athletes you work with, I think we'll dive into that in a bit as well. Yeah. But I know we've had conversations on, the term sports science, and it's so popular. Everyone is a sports scientist in their own regard. Yep. But I think we'll start off nice and light by what is sports science in your definition, Jordan? Yeah,
no, it's something I've thought a lot about, actually. And I like that you mentioned everyone is a sports science, because I actually believe that's true, right? Mm-hmm. There's some people who are trying to protect what a sports scientist is defined as, and put barriers up around, what that really means. And I understand that, right? But I would be an advocate that everyone is a sports scientist. And so my simple definition that I always use is, hey, if you're using information to try to guide your decision-making process as a practitioner, like, hey, join the club. You're a sports scientist, because that's all it is at the end of the day. Is I always say it's using better information to make better decisions. And I think that's what we're all trying to do. And so I'm all about inclusion when it comes to sports science, as long as we can create processes, frameworks, knowledge that allows people to do that responsibly, to do that well, to add those tools, to make those tools an expected part of whatever domain expertise you have, whether that's as a therapist, as a strength coach, as a dietitian. Like, no matter your domain, I believe it can be the multiplier for your unique skill set.
For sure. And I think responsibly is the key word there. Data in the wrong hands is potentially dangerous as well. I've been there with some old school coaches that maybe use data for the wrong reasons as well. But anyways, that's a rant I'm not going to go down on this episode.
Yeah, all good.
So I guess, like, sports science, it's fundamental now, but it's also it's a small cog, part of a much larger system and machine. And that is called the multidisciplinary team.
Yep.
So what I want to dive into is, we've got your role where you just came from in Oregon. We've got your role at Red Bull. But if we think about how to be effective as part of a multidisciplinary team, what advice would you have to practitioners that are listening, maybe from a leadership point of view, but then also as the individual practitioner that's part of that team?
Yeah, no, that's a good one. And there's a lot of elements to it. And I think, while my role at Oregon was very similar to my role here at Red Bull, they're also completely different environments. They couldn't be further apart on ends of the spectrum in some ways. But I think some of those principles of, like, leadership and what I would call facilitation of a high performance team or a high performance ecosystem end up really being really, really similar. And somewhere along the line, I came up with just my thought process around it revolves around clarity, right? So do we have a clear vision as a team of experts from different domains who are trying to solve a shared performance problem, right? That's what we're here for, is to help the athlete overcome an obstacle or gain that extra bit of performance, right? That's our shared outcome. Do we have a vision for what it looks like to contribute our expertise to the common goal? Yeah. and then there's the behaviors that are required to execute on that on a daily basis. And that really comes back to communication and collaboration, right? So if we have clarity on the vision and then we have the behaviors of communication and collaboration through the process, for me, that's what is the foundation for ultimately for a successful high performance team. Easy to say, right? Sounds great. Not easy to do by any means. And that's just because everybody has a different perspective, a different bias. It's easy to lack agreement on sometimes even on the vision, or if the vision is clear where we're going, how we get there might not be as clear. So, it's a continual process and it starts with people who have the right mindset, I think, the right mindset, the right knowledge base and the right expertise to bring to the table and and build something special. And to be honest, I think it is in elite sport right now. It can be the differentiator for your team is, do you have that high performance team, the team behind the team that can get the job done, and make a difference for your players? Do your players enjoy the environment that's created by that staff, right? If there's fracture in the staff, there's going to be fracture that's going to be visible to the athletes. And so those are all pieces that are important, and nowhere's perfect, but I think we can all strive to get better.
For sure. And you mentioned common goals there, and the definition of a team, as far as I'm aware, unless the dictionary's changed, is a group of individuals working towards a common goal. So whether that's the backroom team, whether that's the players on the field, it's all the same goal. So if anyone is leaking energy or maybe negatively displaying some attributes, that will have a knock-on effect as well.
Yeah,
I'm definitely in agreement there. So what I want to touch on is what maybe you've seen that could negatively impact that multidisciplinary team.
Well, common goal is a good one, right? And I think that's one of the things I've recognized as a difference between Oregon and here at Red Bull is at Oregon, team sport in general, right? The goals are generally quite clear. It's on-field success at the end of the day. That is the goal. And there's lots of layers below that, whether that's physical capacities, fitness, performance, whether that's health and availability, whether that's talent identification and recruiting. It could go on and on. Here at Red Bull, it's much less clear, right? We don't have, at Oregon, we had 20 different sports, and a lot more mainstream. So relatively easy to get clarity. Here we have 200 sports from across every imaginable discipline, right? So what is that common goal when we're supporting, a wingsuit skydiving athlete, for example? What is their need and how should we support them, and what's going to make a performance or health impact for that athlete? Those are sometimes harder things to understand them. And there's not a competition coming up, right? So is it their ability to do their job more often for longer? We have a lot of content creators at Red Bull. So skateboarding is now an Olympic event. And so there's competitive skateboarding, but there's also the sport itself is rooted in content creation. And at some points, video parts are more of a priority than anything else. And so, I think it's something we still struggle at is, hey, what defining the outcome, defining success? What is that team goal sometimes? And one thing that I always come back to is, hey, if we can create a really empowering and positive environment for the athletes when they come in here, if they can feel supported, if we can make them feel heard and recognize what their goal is, if we can maybe even work through the process of pulling their goal out of them and then create positive steps here, but then also behaviors for themselves that they can go and execute that are going to progress them towards their ultimate goal. For me, it's sometimes vague, but that's a huge part of success for us.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Right. So I'm going to split this down completely in the middle. We're going to start with Oregon, and you mentioned the 20 sports that you had access to. Let's even take, obviously we're on the VALDCAST. We've got the lens of objective measurement technology. When you look about those sports, thinking about profiling, thinking about monitoring. So obviously two different things, different buckets to work with. What did that process look like? And then we'll probably ask the exact same question for your 100 plus sports here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, again, we had kind of a framework at Oregon. We called it profile, load, monitor, right? So for us, it was about, for each sport and in some levels, just the population as a whole. There's enough similarity in a lot of those sports that our physical capacities break down into some really general qualities, whether that's strength, power, speed, endurance. Like there's some basic buckets there. And again, my role there, 20 sports, 500 student athletes, was, hey, can we operate at a high standard of consistency and informed decision making across all of those different environments? So a lot of coaches, a lot of staff spread geographically across an entire campus. Can we put systems and processes in place that allow us to profile the demands of the sport? Like, what does it take to be successful? Can we profile the capacity of the athlete? Hey, here and now, where are they at compared to where they need to be at? And can we actually implement workflows, decision trees, whatever that is, to use that information to guide decision making on a daily basis about what should be prioritized within their training program? I think in collegiate sport, there's still probably the standard or expectation of pretty like blanketed across the board training prescriptions, which is fine. But the goal is, can we be just a little bit more directed? And it's not individualized, but it is maybe specific to an athlete or a group of athletes' needs within that environment. So definitely from a profiling standpoint, can we get those basics across the entire organization? Can we have reliable methods, quality data collection, clear decision models for what we're going to do with that? And then can we be consistent over time, an athlete's career, in capturing that profiling data at certain time points?
So is profiling done pre-block, post-block, or is it seasonal? Or
it's so seasonal in college. It depends on the sport and when their season is, right? So ideally, we always said if we can get a really good holistic profile 3 to 4 times a year, that's a big win for us, right? It's usually maybe before the season or before preseason starts, maybe at the end of the season or beginning of the off season. And then, some other time point, like, hey, end of an off season block before they go away for summer or before they transition into another preseason, something like that. So we can get 3 to 4 good time points across the year. It gives us information to understand their trajectory, their progress, set baselines in case there is an injury in the future, all those things.
And it gives you guys accountability as coaches as well, that, you know, you've got a duty of care to your athletes, but also that they are improving, or at the very least, they're not, going backwards.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah.
Okay. So that's profiling, which is a logistical nightmare, I'm sure, with 500 plus athletes, but monitoring, which is a bit more regular. Can you talk to me how you would go through that, and even examples of some of the tests that you found to be beneficial? Yeah,
for sure. I'll speak to our football environment just because that's probably the highest priority, highest touch, most integrated environment. And so much about that environment is just managing the load response, both through the off season and like during the season in particular. And so, counter movement jump monitoring is a big piece of that. We always like doing it like on a Thursday, end of the week, when our athletes are recovered and fresh, as fresh as they're going to be throughout that week, for the most part, aside from like game day itself. And we're really looking for meaningful changes or trends over time. That's really what it comes back to. So having consistent methods, having an environment where athletes are motivated to put in effort, because with that test, like that's a key prerequisite. And I think, practitioners can really influence the environment in order to capture quality data there. And then a clear understanding of, hey, what metrics are we looking at? What's the sensitivity of those for identifying meaningful change? And then what's our workflow for making adaptations based off of that information? So that's what I loved about Thursday is, hey, we're still 36 hours, 48 hours away from game time. So if an athlete is still in the tank, for example, we have some time to do something about it, right? We can modify like load throughout that, pregame walkthrough day, although it's already pretty light. Like we can make modifications. We can implement further recovery strategies. We can just elicit conversations about where they're at and what it's going to take to get them where they need to be come game time. And so, that was a really good touch point for us there. And then just to carry on the back of that, from a durability standpoint, so mitigating the risk of little, injuries popping up, the groin strength testing and hamstring strength testing were huge pieces for us to integrate as well. So, again, rather than making it a testing type of a scenario, integrating that into the training process, into the weight room, and just capturing longitudinal data. Now, you have to understand the interpretation of those results is going to be different because the consistency in, load, timing, all those other factors isn't going to be perfect. Yeah. So large signal is going to have to stick out in order to make real differences. But so much of the time it becomes an opportunity for a conversation with the athlete as well of, not only were my numbers low, but it hurt a little bit and it hasn't been feeling great for the last 2 days. Sometimes that's on the radar of the training staff and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's something that, we can catch and address in the moment. And then, it's just, again, when you have a large squad, a lot of athletes having the tools in place, the technology in place to capture that data efficiently in as quality a manner as possible. And then analyze and review the results in a way that can facilitate real-time decision making. It's having systems and processes in place to do that effectively.
For sure. And I guess like a common question we always get is maybe from your experience in that football environment with the CMJ, were there any specific metrics that you find to be more discriminatory than others?
Yeah, I'd say we kept it really simple. We look at jump height just because that's what every athlete wants to see. And if it's green when they're done, they're happy and they're out of there, right? But RSI mod would be probably the other one we'd lean on a little bit more because it tells us a little bit something about their strategy and if there's some more reactive explosive changes to how they moved and how they created that output. And then again, knowing both expected variation in the test, but then also individual variability for that athlete, whether one or both of those metrics were outside that normal range, that's an opportunity for us to dig in a little bit further.
For sure. I like that. RSI mod comes up a lot as a sensitive metric.
Again, not exhaustive by any means, but simple and for us, effective enough to guide our decision making.
I think it's process. A good flag. When it pops up and it's red, it prompts you to maybe investigate further and look at other metrics as well. So that's great. So let's transition to Red Bull. Yeah. Talk to me first of all about your role at Red Bull.
Yeah. So again, in some ways, my role is the same at Oregon and Red Bull as far as the director of performance here, like oversight and leadership of our performance team. So that includes our strength and conditioning staff, our sports science staff, our nutrition staff, and our mental performance staff. So creating a vision and clarity for what we want to accomplish as a department and how we want to operate, but then removing barriers as well, right? So what are our limitations and how can I, eliminate those or make our processes more streamlined and facilitating that communication and collaboration that we need to get where you want. I think my background as a practitioner is still part of what I love to do. And so this role allows me to probably be more hands-on coaching when I want to than what I was able to do at Oregon a little bit as well, which I really enjoy. But ultimately, yes, it's a different environment because rather than creating processes across a massive organization, we have a diverse population of individual athletes who are trying to solve specific performance problems for. So I would say at Oregon, it was a mile wide and an inch deep, but do it really well, right? Here, it's an inch wide and a mile deep and solving, things doing things at Red Bull that can't be done anywhere else just because there's not the time, the attention, the resource in order to go that far.
For sure. And how do you attack different athletes walking through the door? Do you have specialists that are maybe involved in certain sports, certain categories? Or is it simply, this athlete popped in, they're going to jump out of a plane next week. I got to do something or?
We do have some specialists just based off of their experience, background, the sports that they've worked with. A couple of our coaches on the S&C side, are tasked globally around specific sport programs. Okay. For example, Will is our surf program coordinator. And, so again, he's really focused on understanding the demands of the sport, understanding the normal capacities of our athletes, building relationships with those athletes in order to facilitate problem solving and performance interventions almost on a global level.
Okay.
So we get prioritized there. Jack is our skate coordinator, so similar things. But again, that only goes so far, from soccer to NBA players to, skydivers, right? It could be just about anything. So a lot of times it comes back to if we can get a read on, what their goal is, right? Do they have a performance outcome that they're looking for when they come here? And maybe who has the most expertise or experience in that specific domain, and, or, who do we think would be the best personality fit, right? Because our environment here, is really high touch, almost one-on-one in a lot of cases. And so can we put them with somebody who's going to give them a great experience and build a personal connection? That's really the difference maker in our success is, can we create that personal connection in sometimes a visit that is, only a day or two long, that keeps them engaged within the APC, network more long term, and provides opportunities for follow-ups and further engagement and return visits and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it brings me to a nice thought of, we spoke about Oregon profiling and monitoring. They're quite regimented in uniform. You may only see an athlete. You may not know when you're going to see them again. Yeah. So how do you, attack that with the testing side? Maybe I'm thinking about getting data.
Well, and again, because athletes come here sporadically, and because our probably expertise is around the assessment piece in a lot of times, and because that's also an area where they may not have those resources elsewhere, especially when we talk about our biomechanics lab or our physiology lab, like being able to go really deep in some of those areas, even nutrition, whether that's looking at energy expenditure, resting metabolic rate, biomarkers, all that kind of stuff. So can we provide that next level service that they can only get here and don't have access to elsewhere? That creates a focus around their visit. And I would say oftentimes those assessments or diagnostics end up playing a primary role in that short-term visit. If they're only here for a day, they're going to spend 3/4 of that probably going through some testing and diagnostics. And so I think we've really optimized for that workflow and that experience for an athlete when they come through in a short period of time.
It's pretty cool. How do you communicate with them when, obviously they go out into the wild and they're away for 3 to 4 months? Do you have a constant stream of communication, or is it just if something goes wrong, you get involved? It's
a case by case basis, to be honest, right? It depends what they're going out to. If they have support wherever they're going, coaches around them, then we probably are happy to communicate with their coaches, share insights or recommendations from their diagnostics or their work with us, and happy to collaborate on the execution of that. But sometimes the athlete really takes the lead on what they want that next step of engagement to be. And I think it's still something where we're working on refining. What does our model look like, right? We have 950 sponsored athletes. We probably can't provide them all with virtual support and remote coaching and stuff like that. But who are the ones who are engaged? Who are the ones who have a real need? And can we invest our resources in the places where there's going to be an impact, and that impact is going to move the needle for the Red Bull brand?
Cool. Curveball. I'm going to throw you, or you're going to throw me 3 of your most unique athletes, all right, that you've got. And I want you to think about, number 1, tests that overlap. So where they share common qualities. And we talked about the CMJ and team field sport, track and field. I'm sure it's got some overlap. But then also some of the niche areas maybe on the periphery that you need to investigate as well. If you could share those, if it's not too sensitive.
No, not too sensitive. And let's see, I might, So skydiving comes up. We had a skydiving athlete in this week. And so it's relevant. And it's man, what are the physical qualities necessary for that? And so a lot of it comes down to a conversation with the athlete of hey, what do you actually do on a regular basis? In fact, Red Bull brought kind of all their global, they call it their Air Force team, down to Southern California a couple of weeks ago and had a camp. And so we sent a few of our practitioners down there to help support that camp. And it was actually a really good learning experience because you start to see what that looks like. And couple things came out, right? Like fitness is actually a really important component of that, because they might be doing 16 jumps in a day, right? And so they jump from the plane, they hit the landing zone, they pack their chute, hustle back to the runway to try to change, get another chute on, and be ready for when the plane lands. They jump in and go right back up. So even just like, hey, the baseline capacity to do that over and over again for 5-6 hours at a time is like relatively demanding. So our conditioning levels have to be able to reflect, you know, the aerobic qualities that are necessary for that. And then from like a fueling, nutrition, altitude standpoint, like they're going up to 16,000 feet and then coming right back down, back to 16,000 feet and right back down. So are there some nutritional interventions that we can do, hydration, to help support that? For sure. Off the back of that, like, a fitness test would be appropriate. And so again, whether that's, you know, a VO2 max type of test or some graded exercise test that's going to give them a baseline and give them clear training recommendations for like, hey, this is what a week could look like for you in order to maintain, or to touch the training intensities and durations that are going to like maintain your capacity to do that. And so, that's one example. Let's see, another sport that would be unique in its knees. Because it's relevant with the Winter Olympics right now, I'm going to go like a snowboarding half pipe athlete. And really unique. And I was learning, we had it on the screen in the gym, right? And we're watching maybe the women's half pipe final. And I've got 3 other athletes who are in the gym who are like snow sport athletes who are here for rehab. Unfortunately, they're like not at the games, but they have, domain specific expertise. And I'm like, like, help me understand why the amplitude of the men is so much greater than the amplitude of the women. Like, cause in my mind, physics is doing the work, right? We're maintaining our speed and we hit that trajectory, and like, what's the difference maker? And they're like, well, it's fear, right? In order to like stick the landing, you need a ton of like strength in order to be able to brace for the G forces when you come down the side of that ramp and hit the flat, or bring speed through the flat and hit the other side of that ramp. Like, you have to have the strength to brace for those G forces and transfer your momentum like back out of the half pipe. And subconsciously, their body knows like how big it can go, in order to be able to handle those forces. And so you see some athletes with a lot of amplitude and some athletes with a lot less. Now there's technical elements of that, I'm sure, as well, but they're like, it comes down to like fear and their body's natural inhibitory, response, knowing how much like force or G force it can handle during those transitions. So again, learning things in the moment every day. And so you start to think like, okay, what are we testing with those athletes? Isometric strength in that, that specific position, probably quite similar to an isometric mid-thigh pull or an isometric squat test, is going to be really relevant for those snowboard athletes or any board sport athlete that's going to have to carry G's like through a landing or like through a takeoff like that. So, again, things I'm learning on the fly every single day. For sure. You're certainly just operating outside the box in general here. So that's one more sport. Do you have one more? Let's see. So surf is the other one that comes to mind, just because we've talked about, or because paddling is such a huge piece of it, right? Mm-hmm. So we're actually like trying to explore what paddle performance like consists of. And there's some research out there in swimmers, like almost nothing in surfers, which is similar, but probably different. And then breaking that into its components, is it like power? Is it endurance? Like what's important for a surfer there? So we've explored and developed some testing methods for looking at like paddle power. At the moment, we're using the Kaiser system to do a force velocity profile in a like pull down, like a straight arm pull down type of a position on a kind of a 45-degree angle that potentially helps us like mimic the power required for that paddle stroke. But then we'd also pair that up with things like an ASH test that look at some like isometric force and overall like say, hey, is paddle power a unique quality, or is it related to other general strength qualities of the upper body, for example? And so again, it's just exploring like the nuance of those sports. And we've actually kind of have a method here around our profiling. We have what's called level 1 profiling, which is the basics that we kind of want from everybody, right? Population norms around a counter movement jump, a drop jump. We'll use our isokinetic dynamometer for knee extension, flexion, torque. We've added a seated plantar flexion on the force plates to that as well, because we just found that calf ankle complex is so important. So that's kind of like the level 1 stuff. Yeah. Level 2 then is our various tests that we've explored and tried to validate and understand the reliability and sensitivity of for specific sports. So that could be, our paddle work. It could be specific endurance tests based off of the demands of a sport. It could be sprint and agility for field sport athletes, right? It's kind of a level 2 tier that's a little bit more sport specific. And then our level 3 tier is like the strange problems, right? This athlete is coming to us with either a strange injury history, something that keeps coming up and holding them back, or a skateboarder who's going to do a jump off of 16 stairs and needs to land it from 15 feet up, right? And so is there a measure of maximal like eccentric landing capacity that we can integrate to see where this athlete's at. So those level 3 tests are not ones we do all the time, but really specific to a question or a problem that we're trying to solve.
Awesome. That has opened my eyes.
Yeah.
A lot. So when you're making comparisons and you're trying to figure out, is that good is the common question that we would get. Yeah. Obviously not a lot of population specific data out there. How does that go?
We're the only people with any population specific data, right? Yeah. And so it's not perfect, but we've been doing this for long enough with this type of athlete that we're starting to get close to having some norms or reference ranges for what good looks like. And it's not perfect by any means, but we probably have to work with what we have. I would venture to say we probably have the best database of skateboarding anywhere in the world. Snow sports, I know there's some governing bodies, some Olympic committees that probably have some good reference ranges there. But yeah, we've got pretty strong database across that. Surfing, it's been explored in different countries, but I'd say we probably have like pretty good foundations there. Skydiving for what it's worth. Like we have what it is, and where we don't have sport specific normative ranges, we always go a layer back and say like, okay, for a male or female athlete, where does this put you? And then even if we only have, 10 or 20 other athletes of your sport, how do you compare? Like we may not create an entirely new like normative range or Z score based on your sport, but we can say, hey, this is your Z score. And then here's, 10 other people around you from your same sport and position. So you can say, oh, I actually know that guy. He's really good. And like, I see him high on this quality or I recognize that person and like, I know what their physical capacity is. And so it can give you a very individualistic lens of where they fall.
I love that. I guess for Red Bull, this is my final question on all this, but for Red Bull, is there an organizational vision as well of where Red Bull wants to take this with their athletes? Or is it simply just more of the same, continuing to support these athletes? Or is there a bigger picture out there? Yeah,
I mean, our mission is to empower athletes to achieve greatness, right? And so that's what we're trying to do every day. And we have a unique population to work with. I think one of the things that we're focused on doing more of is is getting outside of our four walls, right? So we have a center here in LA and a center in Austria. And can we expand our impact beyond athletes coming to us and providing a service? And can we go out to them and provide a service? And specifically around our key athletes, our high priority athletes, what's missing in their performance team? And is there a way that we can fill that gap? Especially when we talk about our key athletes, right? A lot of them come from environments with a lot of resource. So they may be like highly paid and have a personal physio who travels the world with them, right? They may, have a really good training setup, like wherever their home base is and have people that they already work with. That's great. What we've found is that oftentimes an athlete who sources that themselves, it's actually a lot of work to source that. It's a lot of work to vet the quality of those service providers. And it's a lot of work to try to facilitate a like clear plan. So the question for us is like, hey, could we step into that like facilitation role? Like we're your remote high performance director, and we're going to help with the planning process between your coach, your physio, your S&C, your nutrition provider. We're going to create clarity and alignment on your needs and like what that should look like and your travel schedule and how you can plan your training around that and some of all those different pieces, right? Can we provide a really impactful service in that way, even if maybe we're not the ones delivering those services on a daily basis? So, hey, that's just an idea, a way for us to explore what it could look like to have more impact outside of our four walls. And then the other piece for us is it's not just the APCs here and in Austria, but it's global football teams, it's Formula One, it's Bora cycling and all those different pieces. Can we add value to them as well, right? And so we look at ourselves as kind of an innovation lab for exploring new topics, new technologies on the fringes of the performance space, and then experimenting with new methods, validating, developing, and hopefully passing those on to another environment where they can, be front and center with the athlete. So those are just a few things kind of on the horizon for us as we look to grow and, expand our impact a little bit more.
It's top class. From the outside looking in, it looks like one of the most exciting roles to be in, honestly. And I'm sure there are no 2 days that are the same. They're working here. So that's great. So final question, I will step away from Oregon and Red Bull, but for you, Jordan, and from your experience in the next 5 years, let's just say, what's the biggest opportunity for practitioners, emerging practitioners, or, the vets out there? What do we need to be ready for in our industry?
Well, I'm sure this is the answer you get from everybody, but AI is going to transform everything that we do. I really believe that. And I'm not the one to tell you how to do that. I'm trying to keep up myself, I think. But I think it just starts with a mindset of we don't have to be afraid of it. We have to look for opportunities to leverage the power. We need to develop a fundamental like knowledge and understanding of what it can and can't do. And I probably shouldn't call it an it, but for lack of a better term, right? Yeah. So again, who knows what the next 5 years is going to look like? The pace, the trajectory of change, it has happened very fast, right? If we look at the changes now versus 10 years ago, just at the conference, we're 11 years since the first NordBoard, right? I think I was in one of those gyms when the first NordBoard, like made out of plywood, circulated around various Australian clubs. And I think of the growth that's happened in the last 10 years. And I would think our exponential trajectory should expect that same or more growth in the next 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 years, right? It's just going to happen bigger and faster. So hard to expect. What I come back to, though, is if we're athlete-facing practitioners, our relationships are always going to matter. And performance can be really complex, but it always comes down to athlete behavior. Our ability to influence an athlete's behavior is the ultimate advantage. And I don't think AI alone can do that, right? It's going to be through our relationships. It's going to be based on our knowledge, right? So the insights that we can get are going to magnify our ability to do that. But if we can influence the way they think about their nutrition, their recovery, their training, their consistency, it won't be new technologies or novel changes. It will be the ability to translate all of that into something that's meaningful for athletes and that they can trust in, believe in, and actually do something about. So, don't know what it looks like, but I'm fairly confident that if you can lean into those qualities, like you're going to have an opportunity to make an impact.
It's certainly not going anywhere, so we're going to have to figure out how to leverage it. But that's awesome.
Yeah,
okay, Jordan, if anyone wants to reach out to you off the back of this conversation, where's the best place to do that? Honestly,
like send me a LinkedIn message. I'm okay at responding to those as long as you're not trying to sell me something I'm not interested in. But I try to do my best, and I should say, ask me a specific question. If it's like, hey, I'd love to catch up for a chat or talk shop. It's like, well, I don't know if I can make that happen for everyone, but if you got a specific question, I'll do my best to put some time into like answering that for you. So yeah.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you for coming on the show, and hopefully we'll enjoy the rest of the conference.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks, Jordan.